Welcome everybody to Mobile World Congress Americas. Thank you all for joining us here. It's great to be in Los Angeles. I feel like we're getting a little bit of Indian summer here. We're very excited about this moment for our industry where we're in a real transformation of the architecture of the business. We can anticipate in the next several years that connectivity and compute will be available everywhere and in everything. And so this is going to create a really radical transformation where we're going to have all kinds of new opportunities coming into enterprise vertical markets, whether those are healthcare, education, government services, entertainment. And Cisco is focused on helping to drive this architectural transformation and also to help our customers transition their business model. And we fundamentally believe that service providers are at the heart of this transition. And our strategy is to support our industry partners in creating new revenue streams, in lowering costs, mitigating risk, and focusing on the customer experience. We want to go ahead and bring up our panel for a spirited discussion here on some of these key industry topics. So I want to introduce first Hanno Bassi, who is the president of Media Solutions at LivePlanet, and he's going to introduce our other panelists. So come on up, Hanno.
Kishan, thank you very much for this nice introduction. So this is going to be a fun evening here for sure. I think we talked about this here a little bit before. I think this is going to be a really good discussion. So without further ado, I want to bring up my panel colleagues here. First up would be Jerry Maupilet, with Altio Star, where he is the EVP of Strategy and Product Management. And then also is my special pleasure to announce Caroline Chen here from Intel, where she's the General Manager of the Network Business Incubator Division, and the Miss 5G, I guess, of Intel.
Edge compute, 5G and edge compute.
5G.
Yeah, don't rob me of a title.
I like the sound of that, actually. And finally, the guy you just saw here, Kishan Mangat, he's from Cisco, where he is the VP and GM of the Cisco Service Provider Mobility and Automation department there. We're going to have Mobile World Congress starting tomorrow. I bet you every 5 milliseconds somebody is going to say 5G. What do you think 5G kind of mean for each of your companies in terms of new technologies and new opportunities and new businesses?
For Intel, we always looked at the 3 pillars in our business. It's not just it's across cloud. So we believe that the cloud compute will go everywhere. We believe that AI will proliferate every aspect of our life and industry. And to bring it all together is a cloudification of network and edge. In fact, recently I was speaking at an AI forum in China, where, as you see, because of the different regulation of privacy, there's a lot of AI permeates. The first generation they had just talk about AI, and then the second one they decided that 5G would be a very good topic for AI. The funny thing is, I probably was the only one in China Mobile talking about 5G. Everybody's there was just assuming that the data will be everywhere. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case. Without 5G, how are you going to be cost-effectively carrying all the data you want, the training to the cloud and edge analytics really cost-effectively? When the banks start talking about, I'm going to have this AI, so people walked in, I know it was qualified for a loan or not. I'm like, how are you going to get that data? So to us, it's really all 3 pillars really tied together by 5G.
Mm-hmm. Terry?
So good afternoon, everyone. So Friday afternoon, I was at a panel with a GCMA, and it was also a question saying, what are you doing? What are you going to be your contribution in 5G? Say, we are a bunch of masochists who are trying for quite some time now to change this industry. There have been discontinuities before. In fact, we have done this before when Cisco is in the middle of this when we did Starent Networks. which was how do we decouple the packet core from the radio domain. And it was the same story. It's not possible. It cannot be done. It will not work. So we have been seen this script before. So we are again in the same situation here as the innovator. So for us, more than anything else, 5G is a discontinuity. Discontinuity means that the status quo cannot deliver on the premise of 5G. A lot of things have to change. It's not just a new architecture. It is a necessity that now networks have to be open. Open so we can really have clearly innovation coming into this space. So we can also, if we want really to attract people who are going to write applications in the enterprise space, absolutely fundamental that 5G will be an open platform. So what we are doing in Altiostar with our little revolution here on opening up and virtualizing the baseband and disaggregating the hardware from the software is to bring a major contribution to create this open platform. And that's the way we are looking at 5G. And 5G is going to take some time to realize, especially with the capabilities that you need to have in terms of serving the enterprise network beside the consumer. I think it's not the 5G we see today, but the investment in 5G, they need to happen now. So if you want to deliver in 2 or 3 years, whatever it's edge compute and network slicing, we can talk more about it, which will be absolutely critical for enterprise applications. We need an open platform. So that's my opening comment.
Okay, and Kishan?
Yeah, I would just add one thing to what Thierry said, and then also underscore something that Caroline said. In terms of the network being more open, it actually needs to be more than just in the service provider domain. And so, I alluded to this in my introduction in terms of the opportunities that non-service provider domains such as enterprise means for the 5G opportunity. And if we truly want to be cost effective, we're going to have to do a better job of making these networks less siloed, less domain oriented, in order to truly realize the vision of imminently consumable connectivity and compute.
What do you think the 5G network kind of topology is actually going to look like? So everybody is talking about virtualization, vRAN, and you guys have the Open vRAN Alliance and so on and so forth. But what does that actually mean in practical terms? What's this especially going to mean for service providers, but also you guys all represent the hardware industry here. What does that mean for you?
I'll make just one quick comment, and then I'll have my panelists here jump in. We've actually been on this journey for several years now. So, virtualization has been something that we've been working on with Intel and with many other industry partners for many years now, going all the way back to in the 4G time period. And that was really the springboard to disrupting ourselves. I mean, you mentioned that we're all hardware companies. Our business is very diverse from that point of view in terms of a hardware software mix, and we've really bought in significantly to what software can bring to portability, to programmability. So as you start to look at this more distributed architecture, what automation brings to that picture, to really truly have an open foundation.
Yeah, when I said hardware earlier, obviously that's a big mistake. Nobody is a hardware company anymore. It's a little bit of hardware and a ton of software on top. That's obviously true. All three of you, I would want to know, what do you think this actually means for the service providers? Right. I mean, today, the 3G, 4G networks are basically designed, operated by typically a fairly small number of very large companies. Where do you see that going with 5G?
So yesterday, Peter knows that we spent a little bit of time in the GSMA world with a CSO roundtable. I really felt like we're at a crossroads. So some of you, I'm a lot older than many of you. I actually survived, went through this whole Nortel debacle, where you do this box that you think is the best for a particular industry, and eventually didn't work out. And so when I looked at this, we could see from the investment perspective, the web scale guys are really moving very fast. like 4G didn't do the operator a lot of favor. There's a lot of money spent on 4G network. The benefits really went to over-the-top guys. They are our customers too. But on 5G, we see a lot that happening. I'll give you an example. Like in China, the four big guys, that over-the-top guys really come in and took a very active role in 5G. In fact, I'm counting my innovation projects in China. Most of them are led by Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu, and JD.com. I mean, that is a scary thought for someone that graduated with an engineering degree. It's something that we have to think about. Like the Mayfair Fund guys and talk about, hey, look, the startups don't want to work with telco. The time to market, time to money is too long. How do we change the behavior? Like when you talk about how the open platform had this whole innovation so that we can participate in this, and when I say we, I mean the telco folks, can participate in the new economy just as well as the enterprise and then the cloud, the web scale folks. That's something we need to think about.
Right. And so, Thierry,
We will see a segmentation of what we call the service providers. So I don't believe that all the what we call the traditional telcos will make this transition, either because they don't want to or they don't need to. But I don't believe that we are going to have a very homogeneous, telco service providers the way we have known them for all the Gs that we had so far. So some may just be very happy to just provide connectivity. Some will go further in terms of trying to have content. I think the one that will have an open platform to attract application developers will do well. But I think we are going to be surprised because Rakuten was a surprise. Rakuten doesn't want to be a new operator. Rakuten in Japan, they are in e-commerce, fintech. They have a lot of contacts. They came to the conclusion, whatever it's the right strategy or not, the future will tell. But they believe that for their strategy to be successful, they need to have this direct connection, direct link to their consumers or enterprise customers. Consequently, they believe that the MVNO model that they have been under for so many years will not make it. So the motivation here is coming from a very different angle. And I agree with Caroline that the web scale, what we have seen with the enterprise, is a successful model. And it has not been easy. It is something that can be applied to 5G. And I will see a lot of companies coming in. And we have seen already that Rakuten is not the only greenfield operator. As of today, we are working already with 5 greenfield operators. And some of them are in major markets. So it means they are going to disrupt. They are going to enter and they are going to disrupt the status quo. So either you are on the telco side and say, hey, I better start this transition now, so I will be ready, whatever it's 4G and then 5G. Otherwise, the likelihood that someone will enter your market is pretty high. And we can make the case that if you really want to go after the enterprise market, maybe you need a different platform and a different model. So we really see a new generation of service providers. We have been pleasantly surprised with some of them. Like we announced on Thursday that Telefonica, major operator in 16 countries, has decided not to wait. So Telefonica is going into a direction where this open vRAN, which is open architecture, open interfaces, open supply chain, is the way they want to make the evolution of their networks.
The hybrid nature of the future 5G networks seems to be a given here, but it sounds to me a little bit like almost like the Wild West here, right? I mean, instead of, let's say in the US currently you have 4 incumbent carriers here, you could have, like in a space like the LA Live here, you could have tens, hundreds of them maybe. How is that actually going to work, like from a regulatory standpoint, from a spectrum sharing standpoint, from a data backhaul standpoint, quality of service? How do you actually make sure that all your customers are happy and they're not necessarily consumers, but probably a lot more of your customers will be enterprise customers of some sort? Where do you guys see that go?
I mean, I see it, I understand the point that you're making, but I do see it much more as what's the right tool for the job. I don't think that we're going to have 100 service providers on this corner. I mean, spectrum is one factor, which you mentioned, which will continue to be, a very important asset that the service providers will be able to leverage. But there will be different domains, different applications, different venues and locations where different kinds of access will be more relevant. Because of the characteristics of the applications, the cost to deliver that form of access, and so what that then generates is this intense need for intelligent software, programmability, building networks with automation from the ground up, so that you can take the costs out of the network while deploying the right network for the right location.
I think I totally agree with you. I think that benchmark would be, can we make 5G indoor base station as manageable as Wi-Fi AP? Like, you guys do a lot of Wi-Fi and it's very automated. Can we do it like that? So then you can talk to a CIO and say, you can have 5G in your enterprise to take over your back office, run your private network, run your enterprise-based network. It doesn't have to be, I know the Intel CIO doesn't want to run her network.
Well, we've actually talked to those CIOs, and the feedback that we consistently get is, yes, we would like an easier to consume access mechanism. Some of our applications require determinism. License connectivity becomes a good way to achieve that, but you need to be able to give me my same manageability, my same policy.
Right. It seems that 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, that was primarily about phones, right?
Yeah.
Smartphones and delivering content to them in 3G, especially 4G, social media, all that sort of thing. But it seems that 5G is actually kind of a little bit of a different application, right? It's not primarily about phones. It's about enterprise networks. We're going to see a lot of private networks there and different applications, IoT, sensors, wearables, VR, AR,
yeah.
advertising. Again, I use this example here, I walk through LA Life and I get, context sensitive advertising sent to me, tailored to who I am and stuff like that. But especially the enterprise use cases, can you talk about that? Because it seems that seems to be the bulk of what 5G is going to enable. So instead of running private Wi-Fi or wired networks, people will just use 5G technology. Is that a fair way to say it, or?
No, there's no doubt that the potential of how 5G can be used, who will use 5G, will be sitting here in 5 years or 10 years, and most of the applications that 5G will be used for, we will not know. I mean, that's a very natural. What we need to do is to bring. Our responsibility is not, again, even the SP. I'm going to tell what is going to be the application that should be you should use for 5G. We have to again offer a platform. The beauty with what we are doing with virtualization, and then when going to containerize it, when we are able to automate, you have to take all as much as possible away from the on-prem and from the campus and the branch. So the more we put in the cloud, and the more it's automated, then you create the foundation for having a more subscription-based model. 5G on demand, 5G as a service. I strongly believe that the enterprise market will be successful, not just because we discovered there is an application that is critical for 5G. It's only if we are able to offer a service to an enterprise, say, I am going to consume this service, I'm going to pay for it, as long as it's secure, that the economics makes sense. So that's our responsibility, is to offer this platform. And that's what we are talking about with edge compute, with network slicing, is to be able to reach a point where we can have 5G as a managed or hosted service. That will be my...
Yeah.
And then the applications, they will come.
I did want to talk a little bit about edge compute here as well, because it's 5G obviously is not just faster, higher bandwidth access, but also pairing that with edge compute. For example, when I was at Fox, we were trying to figure out what the future of entertainment looks like with immersive experiences, virtual reality and that sort of thing. And there was no shortage from a creative standpoint to really create very meaningful, immersive experiences. What we constantly ran into was that our consumers actually do not have the infrastructure basically to play those back, to actually do those, and then so for us that meant you have to have basically some form of publicly accessible compute resources that people could basically rent on a hourly or by minute kind of basis. And can you guys talk a little bit about the combination of 5G, highly densified, radio access, but then in addition, how does that then play together with edge compute resources, and where do you see the evolution from like more centralized cloud resources to widely deployed, very close to the end consumer edge resources?
We started thinking that edge compute with 5G, it really meant that distributed computing, distributed storage will be really like I spent a lot of time recently talking with a smart retail, focusing on industrial, focusing on healthcare, transportation. In China, they're building highways that are meant for autonomous driving.
Right.
But in reality, what they're doing is putting up all this roadside unit, because all these cameras and license plate, there's a whole lot of information being gathered, and they wanted to actually do local analysis. So because of a time constraint, because of need to have relevancy due to the location,
Right.
is a congestion happening, is accidents happening, and then the training then happens in the cloud. So when you have 5G without local compute to analyze the data, you really don't take full advantage of that.
Right.
So
How about you, Kishan?
Yeah, I mean, we fundamentally believe that all of the services are moving closer to the subscriber. So whether you're talking about peering, if you're talking about the user plane, I mean, fundamentally the 5G network will have a distributed user plane with the control plane in the cloud. You have edge analytics, you have caching. So services are fundamentally moving closer to the subscriber, and with that architecture shift, then the general purpose compute that come from some of our partners, that's going to be more readily available, and then those applications will come on board, which will create new revenue streams, which will then create an increase of compute at the edge.
Obviously, you guys, all three of you, represent large, very respectable companies, but at the same time, all three of you obviously also are just regular human beings. And so my question would be, as a consumer, like since so you guys are so close to this industry, as a consumer, what do you expect actually to get out of 5G? Is there like one specific thing? So for example, my pet peeve is the airport case where we talked about this earlier, where you sit there and wait for your flight to be called, and I'm sitting there with 5 bars and everything seems to be wonderful, and I have no connectivity because the cell is full, and I really hope with 5G, with more spectrum and beamforming and all that problem is going to go away. So, but like from a consumer perspective, what do you guys think, how is your life going to change with 5G? I guess is the question.
I would like my flights on American Airlines never be delayed, and I do not ever want to get on a plane, sit down, buckled in, have the pilot come on and go, "Oh, folks, here's a light just came on. You should have known. You just flown that plane. Why didn't you fix it before you call everybody on?"
And 5G is going to help with that?
I actually went and met with the American Airlines CIO, and I talked to him about it, and he told me that they only have 45 minutes of download in between flights, if they're lucky.
Yeah.
Depends on which airport they're in, for the home airport. So they only able to analyze and download less than 20% of the engine data from the last flight. I'm like, that's ridiculous. You need to buy more Intel-based servers, number one. But really, you need to really start running some edge analytics.
Never heard that before. That's a very interesting one. Yeah. Very good. Terry?
Well, in fact, I'm going to say something a little bit different from what you're asking, because yes, I'm a human being. Yes, I'm a consumer, but I'm not just a consumer. I'm also someone who is working in the enterprise space. And 5G, for me, will have to deliver for the enterprise. I have no doubt that 5G is going to be a great story for consumers. I strongly believe that the consumer experience is going to be better because it's not just 5G. What's going to happen is you are going to have the convergence of very cool technologies. You have AR, you have VR, you have AI, you have machine learning, blockchain. You have a lot of new technologies that if someone is able to package this in a very smart way, can not only make the consumer very excited, but can also make money. So, because we should not forget that this business we are in doesn't look so great, especially if you're on the networking infrastructure. You just look at the P&L of Nokia and Ericsson, Huawei, who knows? What I can tell you, to participate in this space, not only is great to have some investment coming in, but if we are going to build a business, the economics have to work for everyone. It has to work for the consumer, for the enterprise customer, for the operator, the service provider, and for the ecosystem that is providing the software and the hardware. If we get this right, we're going to have a fantastic business.
Okay, Kishan, bring us home here.
I would just say, application access is like the air that we breathe, and so having that be pervasive and reliable, that's what I'm really looking forward to. I think we still have much innovation we can deliver.
Absolutely. I would just say I would have loved this to be like twice as long as it actually was, but I really enjoyed talking to you guys. I think this was really very insightful, and hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So I want to thank our panel here, Thierry, Caroline, and Kishan for all their insight, and we'll see you in there with a drink in our hands, I guess. See you at the bar, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody.